Hey guys, it's Lady Hawk. How are you today? So, I'm bringing you another story today. This case is about a beautiful woman who lived an altar lifestyle, and it is said her husband was not able to handle it, so he murdered her. I don't know about this. It's a little weird. It has a lot of twists and turns, so you're gonna have to stay with me. So, Kathleen grew up in Florida and was described as a lover of the outdoors and a young girl who dreamed of becoming a mother. When she got older, Kathleen ended up becoming a model. Very beautiful woman, even though she had a lot of self esteem issues. It was like she needed the approval of everyone else and the attention in order to know how actually beautiful she was. During Kathleen's modeling career, though, is when it is said that she developed a strange fixation on Marilyn Monroe. Very beautiful heartthrob. Everybody knows about Marilyn Monroe. Very sexual. She wanted to be everything that embodied the famous actress. Everything from her hair, her clothes, her makeup, etc. So then in 2004, Kathleen met a man who would become her husband, William Jeff West. In just 4 months, guys, of dating, the said unlikely duo, because they were polar opposites. He was more quiet, more laid back, while she was very loud and rambunctious, decided to go get married in Vegas. After they wed, the couple lived in Caleria, Alabama, a very quiet suburban area. And then the very next year, Kathleen gave birth to a beautiful little bouncing little girl named Logan, who they ended up calling Lola. Everyone would say that the West family was normal, happy, nothing strange about them. They were just a normal suburban family. Kathleen would always post modest photos of her and her family on Facebook, and even Jeff and Kathleen had matching tattoos on their wrists that would say, "For life." And they were so cute that when they would text each other, they would sign off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which in their way was meaning, "I love you for life." But Kathleen was a strange one. She had an alter ego, and her name was Kitty Cat. Kathleen, who would call herself an exhibitionist, would post racy photos in lingerie, costumes, and even nude. That's right. Like, this stay-at-home mom had an OnlyFans page. Now, I know that's not too unusual for this day and age, but back in the 2004, 2005 area, it was pretty unusual. Now, you would think that someone that did this at this time, especially a woman that was seen as a righteous woman, a woman that was a stay-at-home mom, suburban kind of area, that she wouldn't want a lot of people to know about this side job of hers. But Kathleen was different. She was very loud about what she did. She would post on her Instagram and Twitter the lingerie and costume photos, telling people to go look at her new pictures on her website. For instance, on her Twitter account, just 6 days before her death, she posted, "Happy Sinful Day. New pics up on site. Please check out my subscription." And the thing is, in order for anyone to see the good pics, they would have to pay $15.99 a month to view her page. And I know most husbands would be upset, like fuming. I know my husband would, knowing that their wives were doing this kind of thing for millions of other people when it should only be for him. But Jeff was okay with this. He was okay with her lifestyle. He would even later on say that there was no jealousy, and he would even help sometimes take her photos. He would tell everyone, "It's just a picture, and she got money for it, so what's the harm in it?" Yeah, no. In my personal opinion, there is something wrong with that on both sides. But to each their own. Everybody has a different lifestyle. But on January 13th, 2018, everything would change for the West family, and their whole lives would be out there for the whole world to know, even people that didn't know what was going on. So the morning of January 13th, 2018, a young 19-year-old neighbor girl was on her way to work around 5 a.m., and she stumbled across a woman lying face down across the street in only a sports bra. And the blood was still gushing from her head wound. And beside her was a cell phone and a half-empty bottle of Absteen. If anybody knows what Absteen is, it's a very strong liquor. Very strong. It's probably even stronger than Everclear. But after she had called 911 and the officers had arrived at the scene, they identified the woman as Kathleen West. Shortly after they had arrived, Jeff West said that he was awoken by all the commotion on the street and the sounds of the cops outside. He also said that his dog was barking like crazy. So when he rolled over in bed is when he noticed that his wife was no longer there, which was weird, but not anything to be worried about. So at this time, he started walking through the house and he was calling her name, Kathleen, and everything, but he could not find Kathleen. And when he wasn't able to find Kathleen, he then proceeded to go outside to see what was actually going on his street. When he approached an officer on the scene, the officer said that they were responding to a dead body. And the body was identified as Kathleen West. And it was weird because officers even said as calm as can be, almost to the point of no emotions. Jeff then stated that, well, Kathleen West is my wife. At this time, the officer and Jeff would go back into the West house and talk a little bit more inside. Now, while they were inside, another officer was getting a statement from the young girl that walked across and found Kat's body. And this is where she told that when she was calling 911 and was talking to the operator, she could see Jeff pacing back and forth in his house. But if you remember, Jeff had said that he didn't wake up until the commotion outside started. So, contradicting stories right there. Now, the officers were also informed that when Kat would drink a few, she was known to go outside, dance, and even sometimes jump on their family trampoline. And after taking a couple of the statements and collecting evidence, officers were pretty sure that it was just a tragic accident. Their theory was that Kathleen had gotten drunk, went outside, and slipped and hit her head on the ground, on the curb. That was until the autopsy was completed. Now, the autopsy showed something completely different and ruled the death by blunt force trauma to the head. Okay, you're thinking, so that could have happened with a drunk girl falling and hitting her head and dying, right? But this is where the forensic pathologist said that this was very unlikely for her to fall and cause the damage that she did to her head because Kat was only 5'2", and so the fall could not cause that much trauma. Because the way the trauma was said that happened was it pushed the brain down onto the stem, which resulted in a brain bleed, and that's what essentially caused her death. He also stated that there was a 2-inch long gash in her head that was consistent with being hit with a blunt object. Now I would think, okay, well, concrete is a blunt object. But he said the liquor bottle would be the blunt object, not hitting the ground. Even though in the report it was noted that her blood alcohol was at a 2.3, which is 3 times the legal limit. There was also other things. One thing is when an officer was gathering evidence, they stated that the scene almost looked staged. The bottle, the half-empty Absteen bottle, was laid across her cell phone, like it was placed there. And when they pulled fingerprints off the bottle, they found 2 fingerprints. One was a left thumb, and the other was a left ring finger. And the position where they found these fingerprints on the bottle was on the inverted side, which meant the bottle was held upside down where the pour spout is. And believe it or not, the fingerprints belonged to Jeff West, the victim's husband. They also noticed that on the bottom of the bottle, there was a small chip missing and even dried blood on it, along with 2 other pools of blood around the victim that they had seen. One being on the street and another being a pool in the grass, which meant the body had to have been moved. When the cops entered the West home to process it after taking Jeff into custody, they found a white tank top in the bedroom and a towel that tested positive for blood. But the weird thing is there was no blood or DNA found on Jeff, and no scalp hair or brain tissues on the body that you would think that would be on there from a blunt force trauma, especially a 2-inch gash. But on top of that, they said the tank top had blood on it and a towel had blood on it. But you would think also, no matter how much you wash, there would be splatters of blood on somebody's hands. Or also even more splatters instead of one spot of blood on the object that they used. Now, when Jeff was questioned after being detained, he would say that that if there was foul play involved, it could have been one of Kathleen's followers who stalked her. But after looking into all the online followers, none fit the profiles. There was no liable suspect there. From what the investigators started retracing, or from there, the investigators started retracing the night prior to the murder for the couple. And on January 12th, the couple would have a date night where they would go to dinner at Papa Do's Seafood Kitchen. From there, they would have a few drinks at the Red Zone Bar and Grill. And on their way home, they would even stop by a little liquor store called R&R Wine and Liquor. Now, surveillance showed at around 9 p.m., the couple was in there all happy. Kat was laughing. Jeff was patting on her butt. At that time they would purchase 1 bottle of Absteen and another bottle of Jameson Irish whiskey. When the couple got home, Jeff said that they had about 6 drinks. And then he would then take photos of Kat in a pink bra, multicolored panties, and pink stilettos. So obviously this was going to be posted to her website. Now, the officials believe that this is what caused the argument to occur, stating Jeff got upset with how much time Kat was on her phone and on her website. But Jeff did admit that he did throw her phone outside through an open window, and when he went to bed around 10:30 p.m., that's when he believes that his wife went outside to grab her phone and fell, resulting to her death. But according to officials, the evidence showed something a little different, and the evidence they had found was not just from his demeanor or the ADT security system that they had that would monitor when the door was open and when the doors were closed, but it also came from the couple's health app that logged their daily moves, like the Fitbits and stuff like that. This was on their phone, monitored their steps, how far they went, blood pressure, everything like that. According to Kathleen's app, her final step was on January 12th around 10:45 to 10:54 p.m. And the distance was 0.04 miles. Then there was no movement until the police arrived and moved her. But Jeff's app was a little bit crazier. So his next to last steps were January 12th at around 10:17 p.m. and was recorded to be about 10 steps. And then his final recorded movement was around 11:03 to 11:10 p.m. with 18 steps being made. Then there would be no movement from Jeff until the next morning on January 13th around 5:12, 5:22 a.m. And it was a total of 59 steps. It's crazy what kind of evidence officers can find now these days with internet and electronics and everything that's online now. But what also kind of amazed me was, if you remember right, they said that they got the call around 5 when the 19-year-old neighbor had found Kathleen's body. Okay. And Jeff had stated that he went to bed around 10:30. So I can understand that maybe he looked at the time wrong and maybe it was a little bit closer to 11. And then the morning that they were called, would it only take 12, 22 minutes to get to where they are for him to wake up due to all the commotion outside and walk those steps around the house calling for his wife? I don't know. But they kind of said that the officials would say that this was a probable scenario. That this was him making the steps out. This was him pacing back and forth like the witness had said. But another thing is officers also found text messages that showed that the couple's marriage was rocky at best, usually with Kat being the verbal aggressor. For example, 8 days before her death, Kat sent Jeff a text message that would say along the lines, "I know you're scared to tell me that you don't want me, but it's only going to hurt me more by lying." And then she would go on to say around the lines, "If you don't want me, just say it." Then Jeff would reply with a sweet and reassuring message saying, "Baby, I want you. Do you still want me?" And then he mentioned something about not talking after the incident after New Year's Eve. Another message around Christmas from Kat telling Jeff that he needed to show her that he wanted her right then and there, or she was going to leave. And she even stated that she was never going to do this holiday, meaning Christmas, with him ever again. And even stated that he was throwing away a 14-year marriage. But in between, the weird thing is between all of these heated texts, there was nudes sent to Jeff from Kat, and he was always responding, "Looking hot, good mama, looking good mama," like everything. So I get that couples fight. Me and my husband argue sometimes, stuff like that. Everybody fights. But it's a little bit weird how she was the aggressor on a lot of it, and then he was trying to reassure her, and he even helped her with her sight, but she was the one that said that he wasn't giving her the attention. Kind of weird there. But they would ask Jeff later on why they were arguing and what they were arguing about. He would say that he didn't like her drinking and that she was upset because she had a higher sex drive than him and she didn't think he was giving her enough attention or her enough, But why would he, if he didn't like her drinking, why would he go to the liquor store that night? Well, he had a response for that too. His response was, "I love her, and she said she can control it." Most alcoholics will lie to you about that. But from the sounds of it, she was an alcoholic and could not control it. Even her mother, Nancy Martin, said that Kat had a drinking problem, that she couldn't just have one. She always needed more. And it didn't help that she was on medication for a bipolar disorder. So she has that interacting with her bipolar and interacting with any kind of other issues the couple was having. Then on Thursday, February 22nd, 2018, Jeff was arrested and charged with the murder of Kathleen West, in which he pled not guilty, and he was placed on a $500,000 bond. The trial took place in November of 2020 and would last 1 week. Now, the crazy part of it was during the trial, the biggest supporters for Jeff's innocence was his parents, of course, Lola, his daughter, and Kathleen's own mother and father. Nancy Martin would even go to say that her son-in-law was a good man and she believes with her whole heart that he didn't do it. She even stated that while they were planning her daughter's funeral, Jeff lived with her for a time being. And she went to the funeral home where he would cry, and he just kept repeating and repeating over and over that this can't be real, this can't be real, in the midst of crying all the time. The jury would only take about 5 hours to deliberate, and within that time, they had a lot of questions. They would ask what time of death was. Now, you would think that that would already been said during the trial, but throughout the whole trial, a time of death was never given. They also wanted help finding the data on the couple's cell phone health app, and they also wanted to view the body cam the officer who first talked to Jeff had on. Because you know how officers have the body cams, so it reports the incidences that they come. It has audio, visual, everything. But they wanted to see it. Now, after all the jurors voted, it was unanimous. Jeff West was not guilty of murder, but he was guilty of reckless manslaughter. The reason that they decided reckless manslaughter was because Jeff was presented with a plea deal that if he pled guilty, he would get to go home with time served. But he refused, kept maintaining that he was innocent, and he refused to plead guilty for something that he did not commit. Also, they just said that they did not have enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that he actually committed this. It was all circumstantial in their heads. Now, during this whole thing, during the verdict reading, Jeff showed no emotions. But his lawyer would kind of explain that. See, Jeff was a soldier vet. He was in the Army. So, of course, military, you are learned to control your composure, control your emotions, especially in stressful situations. And obviously, this is a very stressful situation. So he would go and say that he was grieving, but he was processing things like a soldier would. And that he was using that composure setting for a soldier. But needless to say, Jeff's bond was revoked, and he was to remain incarcerated until after his sentencing. The following February, Jeff was sentenced to 16 years. The judge would say that he handed down what he thought was fair, but not the max due to the lack of criminal history, pleas from his daughter, mother, and mother-in-law, and some other factors that were included in there. Before Jeff was sentenced, his daughter Lola would go to say during the victim impact statement that she was raised in a very loving home, and her father was never loud or abusive towards her or her mother. He never even spanked Lola. She would even go as far to say as, he has always been my shield against the world. Now, Jeff was also allowed to speak before his sentencing, but during his speech, he would never mention Kat by name. He would never talk about the death. The only thing that he would say about it was, I lost my best friend. After Jeff was sentenced to prison, Kathleen's parents would take custody of Lola. But they wanted to make sure that since Lola had already lost her mother and her father, that both set of grandparents would stay in the picture. So they made sure that they had joint custody with Sue and Jerry West, which was Jeff's parents. Jeff's lawyer did say that they were going to file an appeal, but Jeff would have to sit behind bars, of course, until the appeal is done. So, with all the evidence, I believe that it's circumstantial, that there wasn't really a lot of evidence to prove that he, for sure, without a reasonable doubt, did this. So I want to know, do you think he's an innocent man, or was it murder in the heat of the moment that he got fed up with everything? I don't know, because I'm torn between the two scenarios. I mean, there's so much evidence that puts holes in Jeff's story, but also I see holes in the evidence that was presented. So honestly, I have no idea. But just go ahead and leave a comment and tell me what you guys think, and hopefully we'll find out more about this story later when he actually gets an appeal, and I will keep you guys updated on it. But until next time, stay blessed, guys.